Hello, everybody, and welcome to Reviews That Don't Matter with Jessica Hitt. My name is Jessica Hitt. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the film that people have been wondering why I have not been seeing this and why it was not on my favorites of the 2017 and all that kind of stuff, and that is Logan. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory. If you've seen some of my videos, you know that I have occasionally mentioned that I am not necessarily a huge Wolverine fan. I really dislike the original trilogy of X-Men films. Even the first and second one I do not like. I just don't. I know I'm in the minority for some of that. Last Stand is garbage, and so is the first two. And then I watched half of Wolverine Origins, and I was like, what even is this? Turned it off, and I was like, I'm done. Never watched Wolverine, even though I heard it was a little bit better. And when Logan came out, I was like, I just don't care. I really don't care anymore about Wolverine at all. And I didn't think I'd like this film. I avoided it for so long. I didn't see it in the theaters, and then I just ignored it for the rest of the year. And then it got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars, and I'm trying to watch most of the Oscar films, and I was like, I guess I'll just finally buckle down, watch this. It's on HBO now if you guys have that. Then you can watch it there, or you can obviously rent it or buy it on iTunes. So the movie starts, and it's a bit of a slow going for me. I wasn't really into it. I was drifting a little bit, mainly because of my preconceived notions of not even liking the film before I saw it. And then we get X-23, which is Daphne Keene's Lara character, finally comes in. She really, like, the moment that she kind of is there with Patrick Stewart's Professor X and Logan, that's when I get really into it. And her first fight scene is awesome. And by the way, this is going to be filled with spoilers because I feel like if you're clicking on this video, you have probably seen Logan. So keep watching, I guess. So basically, once and really the scene that got me into it and made me like, okay, I've got to pay attention to this, is the scene right before the fight scene when the sort of soldiers are all kind of like sneaking up on X-23, and she has been watching the security footage, and she knows that they're right behind her, and she's just kind of like slowly paying attention, looking, side eyes going everywhere. She's eating her cereal, and I'm just like, who is this chick? And then she completely tears everyone apart and murders them. And I'm just like, okay. And you're like, okay, she's like a mini Wolverine. And then she has little spikes that come out of her feet, and you're just like, she's better than Wolverine. I'm totally into this little tiny girl who's kicking everybody's ass. So basically, from that moment on, I was totally here for this movie. And I was just so involved. And, you know, it's not even like I was really that attached either Logan, or I almost said Logarine, Logan and Wolverine put together, Logan and Professor X. I thought this was a really interesting turn for Patrick Stewart's Professor X. There were times where I got a little annoyed of his character, and I was like, okay, you can calm down. But at the same time, I did like this idea of having a person who has the most powerful mind in the world having a sort of a brain disease. And then with Logan, this whole story of him trying to, or really not trying to find a purpose, but somehow he finds his purpose again in basically carrying on the X gene and getting all of these kids to safety. Because for a while there, you think that this is just going to be a mission that is useless, because you're like, okay, this Eden place doesn't exist. X-23 Lara, she's probably the only one of these mutants that have survived. And then I will say the first time I teared up in the film was actually learning of how Lara got her powers and seeing all of those kids that were basically just being tortured their entire life. I started tearing up in that. I was just like, wow, that's powerful, the fact that they made these kids into what they are. And I also love this whole thing, how the nurses and the people that were responsible for taking care of these children were the ones that got them out, and they were strong enough to, you know, fight the man and be like, this isn't right, we need to save as many kids as we can, so we're going to take a couple, try and get them there. And then you have these great moments that when they arrive in Vegas, and really you see the world through X-23's eyes, and she's never seen anything like this before. She's never seen it. And then you go to Vegas, and you see a lot of stuff. And then the whole thing in Vegas happens where Professor X has his seizure, and it basically makes everybody stand still for a very long time, and I don't quite know what it does. It's almost like it freezes all your senses and like seizes you into like I don't know, instead of like muscle spasms almost in a way, where they can barely move, they can see everything that's kind of happening around them, but they can't do anything about it, which is just like, first of all, it'd be terrifying if that happened to you, and then you see Wolverine coming at you with his claws, and you're just like, I'm gonna die. Well, bye, world, and he can't do anything. Like, that sucks. But then you also see the pain that Professor X has caused, and how bad he feels, you know? And then it leads into, like, one of the most heartbreaking sequences ever of them helping out that little farmer family with the horses, and then inviting them to dinner, and then they're kind of bonding, and you see these really great people, and then they stay the night, and they're helping with an issue, and then of course they get tracked, and they all die from a X-24, which is basically a nega Wolverine. And the moment they all start dying is just literally heartbreaking, because you're just like, God, these people were just nice people, and you were just like, God, I'm rooting for them, and then they die because they decided to help some people. And that sucks. It sucks so hard. And then also, it's the same sequence, of course, that Professor X dies. And while that didn't necessarily get me too much, because first of all, I knew who was going to die because I read some spoilers on it. Or obviously that was a big spoiler that kind of like came out and was just like, okay, well, this is it. But what did hit me was the moment that I see X-23 look back and see that Professor X is dead, because they've had like a really sweet bond between the two of them. Not exactly father-daughter, but more like a grandpa and daughter, or granddaughter. And so when she realized that happened, and she gets all rage-fueled and tries to break out of something, and that is when it kind of hit me that he was gone. And of course, we get introduced to Nega Wolverine, which I was wondering throughout the entire movie, like, how were they going to fight against Wolverine? Because even though he's old and he's dying, he is still Wolverine, and he still has metal claws that are just like, it's hard to fight. And since this is the farewell to Wolverine, the Logan character that Hugh Jackman has brought to life the past decade, I do like seeing this sort of younger version of the Wolverine that's kind of rage-fueled and like still at like the peak fitness that he could be in, and then opposing obviously the Logan that is in this movie, that is old man Logan, who's falling apart and he's dying, and he doesn't have as much energy as he used to, and he's also not filled with as much rage as he used to be. And then after that whole thing happened, they're driving away, and Logan basically collapses because he's exhausted and he's dying, and he just got slashed through. And so X-23 brings him to like a very small clinic. He kind of like rests up there. They have a fight, and then X-23 speaks for the very first time this entire movie. She has not spoken, and I thought that was so like powerful. And then she speaks, and she speaks she speaks Spanish, and then she also speaks a little bit of English. And I think that's really cool that she mainly speaks in Spanish. You don't see that very often. And I just love this very first argument that they have between Logan and X-23, where they're just like yelling at each other, and she even just like punches him in the face, which was so funny to me, because he was just like, oh, I can't hit her, I can't like get too angry about this, okay, I just need to like settle through. And then finally she does convince him to try to find this Eden place, because that's where her friends are going to be, which, I mean, in Logan's mind, he's thinking, none of these kids survive, like, this is not a place, like, it's not happening. And then when they actually do arrive at Eden, and Logan, like, wakes up and he sees this, like, small little, like, cabin, I guess, and he sees that there's people there, he's just like, holy crap, these kids made it. And, like, it's this little group of kid mutants that is just, like, they're good friends. They basically grew up together. They're like a family. And this reminds Logan of the X-Men and all of the people that he's lost. And there's like this really little bit of joy, but also sadness mixed in with that. And him seeing all of these kids, and he was basically just like, you guys need to head on out. And they were like, we have a deadline. We have to leave tomorrow, because today was the last day that anyone could survive here or get here. And so the next day, we get this great sequence of them going through, and they're trying to get across the border to Canada because there's safe haven in Canada, because United States is the worst apparently, and that I agree with. So they're racing through the forest. They're trying to get everybody to get over the border, and then to help them, Logan rushes in. He took this like special serum that's basically gives you like a huge adrenaline rush and makes you stronger, but if you take all that, you're gonna die. And so he takes all that to get these kids across the border, but it's a lot more difficult than that because a couple of them have gotten taken by these people. And then you have, of course, X-24, the Nega Wolverine. And the fact that it was X-23 who pulled the trigger and actually killed Nega Wolverine is, like, to me, so powerful because it's a passing of the torch in the fact that Logan's gone, you know, we don't get him anymore, and we have these new mutants, which personally, if we're talking about New Mutants, should be the group of kids that we're following, not some 90s horror film, in my opinion. Because personally to me, the kids steal the movie. I think that X-23 is just one of the best characters ever written for a superhero film and in film in general. I think that there's something that really connects me to her, and like she is the only reason that I really loved this film. And I think that Daphne Keene's portrayal of X-23 Lara was so powerful, and she's what makes me connect to this movie because, in my opinion, I don't know if I would like this film as much without that character and without me being able to feel what she's feeling, because that's when it got me. You know, I started feeling rage when she felt so mad after Professor X was murdered, and then when she was losing Logan, that's when I was losing Logan. So without her, she's like a conduit for my feelings for this movie. And I'm just so shocked that I liked it. I really am. I love this movie. It tore my heart apart. I was crying a lot during it, and I was not expecting to at all. But at the end, it still gives you hope, and that's something the X-Men movies have done. Even the ones that I have not necessarily liked very much, they do leave you with that everlasting hope that it can get better, which obviously it does not, considering every time we peek into the future, we get Logan, or we get the, all the stuff in Days of Future Past where the Sentinels are destroying everything. So the future sucks. That's what this movie's about. No, I'm kidding. The movie's about a lot more. It's a beautifully told movie. It's probably, to rank the superhero movies of this last year, it's so different because the top three obviously are Logan, Wonder Woman, and Thor Ragnarok for me personally. And they're so very different. You have Thor Ragnarok, which is a comedy. You have Wonder Woman that has a lot of meaningful and powerful messages, especially to someone like me. And then you have Logan, which is a sort of farewell story to this character that we've known for a decade. Or no, for 2 decades. 2 decades. 18 years. Because X-Men came out in 2000. Jesus Christ. 2 decades. That's insane. So it's hard to say. I think my personal... I can't decide which one is my personal favorite, which one I liked more. I'd say Logan is probably the best film out of the bunch. I don't know if it's my favorite necessarily, because something like Thor Ragnarok has more of a rewatchability, and then Wonder Woman has something that is really important to me, and then Logan is something that's like kind of tears me apart and might be hard to watch again because how much I cried. So I guess we'll see. I think I probably have to sit on it for a little bit to like really do that, and plus I should probably see all these movies over and over again till I make that decision. I don't think any of the other superhero movies that I saw last year really add up to a Justice League. No. Spider-Man Homecoming, as much as I loved it, not really up in that section. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, definitely not. Lego Batman, definitely not. So yeah, we'll see. But overall, I'm very happy with my experience watching Logan. I'm very surprised with my experience watching Logan. I think it definitely deserves its Oscar nomination for adapted screenplay, because I think that comic book movies do have a very hard task in the comic book and adapting it to a movie, more than like a regular book adapting to a movie. I do think it is a harder task, and the fact that they did this so well is insane. I don't know if I'd put it for Best Picture, because I have not seen all of them yet, but I'm getting there, I swear. It's a lot, okay. Okay, everybody, I hope you guys liked this review. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment down below. What are your thoughts on Logan? I know a lot of you have thoughts on it, so please bury me in your comments. And then also, don't forget to subscribe and make videos Monday through Friday. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.